Stop right there for a moment. What if I told you that right now, at this very second, there are people in your life who are slowly destroying your inner peace, draining your energy and poisoning the sanctuary you call home, and you don't even realize it? Alan Watts, the philosopher who transformed how millions of people understand life and consciousness, warned us about 5 specific types of human beings, 5 categories of people who appear normal, who might even seem friendly or helpful on the surface, but who are actually like slow-acting poison seeping into the foundation of your personal space and mental well-being. If you've been feeling exhausted in your own home, if you sense a heaviness that wasn't there before, if your energy seems to vanish whenever certain people are around, then what you're about to hear in the next 25 minutes could be the wake-up call that changes everything. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify these dangerous individuals, understand exactly why they're toxic to your peace, and most importantly, you'll know exactly what to do about it. Welcome, my friends. Let's begin with a fundamental truth that Alan Watts spent decades trying to help us understand. Your home is not just a physical structure made of walls, floors, and a roof. It's far more than that. Your home is your personal temple, your sacred space, the one place in this chaotic, demanding world where you should be able to let down your guard, recharge your spirit, and simply exist without pretense or performance. It's the container that holds your energy, your dreams, your most intimate moments, and your deepest vulnerabilities. But here's what most people fail to realize, and what Watts tried so hard to teach us. The energy you allow into this sacred space directly determines the quality of your entire existence. Think about it for a moment. In Eastern philosophy, which Watts studied deeply and brought to Western audiences, there's a profound teaching that your external environment is a mirror reflection of your internal state. If your home is filled with chaos, negativity, and toxic energy, your mind will inevitably become chaotic and toxic as well. The two are inseparably connected. Watts understood that protecting your personal space isn't selfishness or antisocial behavior, as many people in our overly accommodating society might suggest. No, protecting your space is actually a spiritual necessity, a fundamental requirement for maintaining mental health and inner peace. Today, we're going to explore 5 specific types of people who, according to the wisdom Watts shared throughout his life and teachings, must be kept away from your home if you value your sanity, your peace, and your well-being. And I promise you, once you learn to identify these people, once you see them clearly for what they are, you'll never be able to unsee it, and your life will transform as a result. The first type of dangerous person, and perhaps the most insidious because they're so incredibly difficult to identify initially, is what I call the emotional energy vampire. This person enters your home, sits on your couch, drinks your coffee, and proceeds to drain every ounce of emotional energy you possess, leaving you feeling exhausted, depleted, and hollow. Every single conversation with this individual somehow becomes an unpaid therapy session where you're the therapist and they're the perpetually troubled patient who never gets better. Their problems, their drama, their crises, their endless complications become the centerpiece of every interaction. And you find yourself giving and giving and giving while they take and take and take without ever reciprocating, without ever asking about your life, your struggles, your dreams, or your needs. Alan Watts had a powerful way of describing this dynamic. He would say that you cannot save someone who refuses to save themselves, and in the attempt to do so, you will only succeed in drowning alongside them. These emotional vampires are masters of manipulation, though many of them don't even consciously realize what they're doing. They've learned through years of conditioning that if they present themselves as perpetual victims, as people who are always suffering from one crisis or another, others will rush in to provide attention, sympathy, time, and energy. Let me give you the clear signs of an emotional energy vampire so you can identify them immediately. First, they're always in a state of crisis, always dealing with some new catastrophe or emergency. Yet strangely, despite all the advice and help you provide, nothing ever changes. The same problems repeat endlessly. Second, they dominate conversations completely, talking about themselves roughly 90% of the time while showing minimal interest in your life. Third, after they leave your home, you feel utterly exhausted, as if you've just run a marathon or completed some physically grueling task, even though all you did was sit and talk. Fourth, they use emotional manipulation phrases like, "You're the only one who understands me," or "I don't know what I'd do without you," to create dependency and obligation. And fifth, they appear suddenly whenever they need something from you, but mysteriously become unavailable when you need support. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine you have a friend who visits your home every single week, and every week without fail. They complain about the same exact problems. Their terrible job, that they refuse to quit their toxic relationship, that they refuse to leave their bad luck that somehow follows them everywhere. You spend hours, literally hours of your precious life, listening carefully, offering thoughtful advice, suggesting practical solutions, being a supportive friend. But then next week arrives and what happens? The exact same conversation repeats like a broken record. Nothing has changed. They haven't applied a single piece of advice you offered. Why? Because they don't actually want solutions. They want an audience. They want someone to witness their suffering and validate their victim narrative. So how do you protect yourself from these energy vampires? First, you must establish clear boundaries around time. Tell them directly, "I can give you 30 minutes today, but then I have other commitments." Second, stop offering solutions repeatedly if they never implement them. After the second or third time, simply say, "I've already given you my thoughts on this situation." Third, ask yourself honestly, is this person adding any value to my life, or are they simply extracting from it? And fourth, remember what Watts taught us about compassion. True compassion includes compassion for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Your home is supposed to be the place where you recharge your batteries, where you restore your energy, where you find peace and renewal. Do not allow anyone to transform it into a draining station where your vitality is constantly being siphoned away. The second type of dangerous person you must keep away from your home is the toxic critic, the individual who has somehow appointed themselves as the permanent judge of your life, your choices, your home, and your very existence. This person walks through your door and immediately begins their assessment, and nothing, absolutely nothing, ever meets their impossibly high standards. You've just finished redecorating your living room, you're feeling proud and excited, and what do they say? "Oh, interesting choice. I probably would have gone with something more sophisticated, but I suppose this works for you." You've cooked a meal, put your heart into it, and their response? "It's good, but not quite like how my mother used to make it." You share your dreams, your aspirations, your plans for the future, and they respond with, "You need to be more realistic," or "That's a nice fantasy, but let's talk about the real world." They disguise their constant criticism as honesty, as helpful feedback, as tough love, but the truth is much darker. They're projecting their own internal insecurity, their own feelings of inadequacy and failure onto you. Alan Watts understood this dynamic deeply, and he taught us that a person who constantly criticizes the light in others is someone living in their own internal darkness. They cannot stand to see you happy, successful, or content because your joy highlights their own misery. Let me tell you exactly how to recognize a toxic critic. They rarely, if ever, offer genuine praise or appreciation for anything you do. When they do compliment you, it's always followed by a but that negates the entire compliment. They minimize your accomplishments no matter how significant, making you feel like nothing you do is ever quite good enough. They constantly compare you to other people, pointing out how others have achieved more, have nicer things, make better decisions, or live better lives. When you share good news with them, when you're excited about something positive happening in your life, their first instinct is to find the negative angle, to point out the potential problems, to rain on your parade. And they frequently use the phrase, "I'm just being honest with you," as a shield to protect themselves from accountability for their hurtful words. The psychological impact of having a toxic critic in your life, especially in your home space, is profound and scientifically documented. Research in neuroscience and psychology shows that constant exposure to criticism and negative feedback literally affects your brain the same way physical trauma does. It raises cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. It damages your self-esteem and confidence over time. It can lead to anxiety and depression, and it creates a constant state of hypervigilance where you're always waiting for the next attack. Now imagine inviting this into your home, into the one place where you should feel completely safe and accepted. It's like voluntarily placing a psychological landmine in your living room. Here's the wise approach to dealing with toxic critics, the approach that Alan Watts would endorse. First, stop justifying yourself to them. Stop explaining your choices, your decisions, your preferences. People who truly love and respect you don't require you to constantly defend your existence. Second, when they start their criticism, interrupt it calmly and firmly. "I'm happy with my choice, and that's what matters to me." Third, drastically reduce the amount of personal information you share with them. They don't need to know your plans, your dreams, your struggles, because they'll only use that information as ammunition. Fourth, if they cannot change their behavior after you've set clear boundaries, then you need to make the hardest decision. Remove them from your space entirely. And this is where many people struggle, because often these toxic critics are family members or old friends. And we've been conditioned to believe that we must tolerate harmful behavior from people just because we share blood or history. But Watts would remind us, your life is far too short, far too precious, and far too valuable to waste it trying to please people who will never be pleased, trying to prove yourself to people who have already decided you're not enough. The third type of dangerous person might surprise you, because this one is often disguised as someone in need, someone who just needs a little temporary help, a brief place to stay, a short-term solution to their problem. I'm talking about the permanent guest. You know exactly who I mean. This is the person who shows up at your door with a suitcase and says those infamous words, "I just need to stay for a few days while I sort things out." But then days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and before you know what's happened, you've lost control of your own home, your privacy has vanished, your routine is disrupted, and you're living as a guest in your own house, while they've made themselves completely at home. Now let me be absolutely clear about something important. Hospitality is a beautiful virtue. It's valued in virtually every culture and spiritual tradition around the world, and there's nothing wrong with helping someone in genuine need for a reasonable period of time. The problem arises when a guest transforms into a permanent fixture, when they settle in and claim your space as their own, without contributing, without respecting boundaries, and without any plan or effort to move forward with their own life. Alan Watts said something incredibly profound about this situation. He taught that when you lose your personal space, you lose yourself. Your home is not just where you live. It's where you process your thoughts, where you restore your energy, where you maintain your identity and sense of self. When someone else occupies that space indefinitely, you become fragmented, scattered, unable to ground yourself. Let me give you the unmistakable signs of a permanent guest who has crossed the line from visitor to invader. First, they make no financial contribution to the household expenses, not rent, not groceries, not utilities, nothing, even though they're consuming resources daily. Second, they act like they own the place, rearranging things, using your belongings without asking, inviting their own friends over, making rules and demands. Third, they show no respect for your privacy, walking into rooms without knocking, listening to your conversations, commenting on your relationships and personal matters. Fourth, they disregard your household schedule and routines, staying up late making noise when you need to sleep, using the bathroom during your morning routine, cooking elaborate meals when you need the kitchen. And fifth, every single time you try to hint politely that they should start looking for their own place, they conveniently ignore the hint or create a new excuse for why they can't leave yet. Let me share a real story that illustrates the devastating impact of a permanent guest. I know a family who agreed to let a relative stay with them for 2 weeks, just 14 days, to help them get back on their feet after a job loss. That was reasonable. That was kind. That was compassionate. But you know what happened? An entire year passed, 365 days. During that time, the couple's marriage deteriorated because they had no privacy, no intimacy, no space to be themselves. Their children lost their freedom to be comfortable in their own home. The house transformed from a peaceful sanctuary into a constant source of tension and resentment. And why did this family allow it to continue for so long? Because they were terrified of what other people would think, afraid of being judged as selfish or uncaring if they asked their relative to leave. This is the trap. This is the poison. We sacrifice our own well-being on the altar of other people's opinions. Here's the hard truth that Watts would want you to understand. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness at all. It's weakness disguised as virtue. Being compassionate doesn't mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. So how do you handle a permanent guest situation? First, establish a clear timeline from the very beginning. Before anyone moves in, even temporarily, have a specific end date agreed upon and written down if necessary. Second, create a simple agreement outlining expectations, financial contributions, household responsibilities, behavior guidelines. Third, do not feel guilty for enforcing your boundaries. This is your home. These are your rules, and you have every right to protect your peace. Fourth, if they refuse to respect the agreement or the timeline, you must be firm and direct. I appreciate that you're going through a difficult time, but I need my space back. We agreed on 2 weeks, and it's been 2 months. You need to find alternative arrangements by this specific date. And finally, remember that your home is not a homeless shelter, not a hotel, not a charity organization. Even acts of generosity and hospitality must have limits, boundaries, and clear expectations. The fourth type of dangerous person, and this one is particularly exhausting, is the drama addict, the individual who seems to carry a storm cloud wherever they go, who cannot exist in peace because chaos is their natural habitat and conflict is their preferred language. You know this person. The moment they walk through your door, you can literally feel the shift in the atmosphere. Suddenly there's tension in the air, a heaviness, an uncomfortable energy that makes everyone slightly on edge. They don't just experience drama in their own life. They actively create it, manufacture it, orchestrate it wherever they go, and your peaceful home becomes their stage for the next theatrical performance. Alan Watts described these people with brilliant clarity. He said that some individuals simply don't know how to exist in peace because chaos has become their identity, drama has become their comfort zone, and conflict has become the only way they know how to connect with others and feel alive. Let me paint you a detailed picture of what a drama addict looks like so you can spot them immediately. First, they are chronic gossips who spread rumors, share confidential information, and stir up trouble between people who were previously getting along fine. They'll tell your sister something you said out of context, then tell you what your sister said in response, all while claiming they're just trying to help everyone communicate better. Second, they constantly compare family members or friends to each other, creating competition and jealousy where none existed before. Your brother just bought a new house. When are you going to get your life together? Third, they take small, insignificant situations and blow them completely out of proportion, transforming a minor misunderstanding into a full-scale crisis that requires everyone's immediate attention and emotional energy. Fourth, they never let conflicts resolve naturally. Instead, they keep bringing up old issues, rehashing past arguments, reminding everyone of who said what and who did what, ensuring that wounds never fully heal. And fifth, they always, without exception, position themselves as the victim in every situation, even situations they themselves created. The impact of allowing a drama addict into your home is severe and measurable. Your home is supposed to be an oasis of calm in a chaotic world, a place where you can let your guard down and relax. When you permit a drama addict to enter this space, you transform it from an oasis into a battlefield. Children in the home become anxious and stressed, picking up on the tension even if they don't understand the specifics. Relationships between family members deteriorate because the drama addict sows seeds of suspicion and resentment, and the peace that should naturally exist in your personal sanctuary simply vanishes, replaced by constant low-level stress and anticipation of the next explosion. In Buddhist philosophy, which Alan Watts studied extensively and taught beautifully, there's a teaching about the protection of inner peace being a sacred duty, not a selfish act. Your peace is precious, it's valuable, it's necessary for your spiritual and mental health, and you have not just the right, but the obligation to defend it against those who would destroy it. So how do you handle a drama addict practically and effectively? First, refuse to engage with the drama. When they start gossiping or trying to involve you in conflict, remain neutral. Aduasainsa. I don't want to get involved in that is a complete sentence that requires no further explanation. Second, don't share your personal business, your private information, or your family matters with them because they will use everything you tell them as material for their next dramatic production. Third, when they try to start drama, redirect the conversation immediately. Let's talk about something positive instead. What's going well in your life? Fourth, minimize contact with them. You don't need to have weekly dinners or regular hangouts with someone who consistently disrupts your peace. And fifth, if they absolutely refuse to change their behavior, if they insist on bringing chaos into your home despite your clear boundaries, then you must make the difficult but necessary decision to exclude them from your space entirely. I'm going to say something now that might sound harsh, but it's a truth that Alan Watts would absolutely endorse. Some people are genuinely bad for your mental health, toxic to your peace, and dangerous to your well-being. Removing them from your life is not cruelty, it's wisdom, it's not being mean, it's being healthy. And anyone who tells you that you must tolerate harmful behavior from others simply because of family obligation or social expectation is someone who doesn't understand the fundamental importance of self-preservation and boundary protection. Now, we arrive at the fifth and perhaps most dangerous type of all, the covert toxic person, the individual who destroys you with a smile on their face. This is the hardest one to identify because they're master actors, expert manipulators who have perfected the art of appearing helpful, supportive, and kind while simultaneously undermining you, sabotaging your confidence, and poisoning your well-being from the inside out. They say one thing to your face and the complete opposite behind your back. They compliment you in public while criticizing you in private. They encourage you to trust them while betraying that trust at every opportunity. They smile while they stab you, and that's what makes them so incredibly dangerous. Alan Watts warned us specifically about these people. He said to beware of the snake that pretends to be a friend, because hidden poison is far more dangerous than obvious poison. At least with an overtly toxic person, you know where you stand, you can see the threat clearly and defend yourself accordingly. But the covert toxic person operates in shadows, wearing masks, playing roles, and by the time you realize what's happening, significant damage has already been done. Let me help you identify a covert toxic person, because the signs are subtle, but they are there if you know what to look for. First, you feel uncomfortable or uneasy around them, even though you can't quite pinpoint why. Your intuition, your gut instinct, is picking up on something that your conscious mind hasn't fully recognized yet. Trust that feeling. Second, their words are beautiful and supportive, but their actions are cold, distant, or subtly undermining. They say they're happy for your success, but somehow they never actually celebrate with you. Third, they give you what I call poisoned compliments, statements that sound like praise but contain an insult. Wow, you're so brave to wear that outfit in public. I could never pull that off. Fourth, they encourage you to make decisions that are actually against your best interest, while claiming they just want you to be happy. And fifth, your other relationships somehow deteriorate when this person is around, almost as if they're working behind the scenes to isolate you or turn others against you. Alan Watts was a strong believer in the power of intuition, in trusting your inner knowing even when your rational mind doesn't have concrete evidence. He would tell you that if something feels wrong about a person, if your body tenses when they're near, if you feel drained or anxious after spending time with them despite their outwardly pleasant behavior, then your intuition is trying to tell you something crucial. Listen to it. So how do you protect yourself from covert toxic people? First, pay attention to actions rather than words alone. Anyone can say nice things, but behavior reveals true character. Second, notice how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel energized and uplifted, or exhausted and diminished? Third, create distance gradually. You don't need a big confrontation or dramatic announcement. Simply become less available, less responsive, less engaged over time. And fourth, trust yourself enough to cut ties completely if necessary, even if you can't explain exactly why to others who might not understand. Your home is your sacred temple, the container for your soul, the foundation of your entire existence. Protecting it is not selfishness, it's profound wisdom. Alan Watts spent his life teaching us one essential lesson. You are responsible for the energy you allow into your life. Not everyone who knocks on your door deserves to enter. Remember these 5 dangerous types: the emotional energy vampire who drains you dry, the toxic critic who makes you doubt yourself, the permanent guest who steals your space, the drama addict who destroys your peace, and the covert toxic person who poisons you with a smile. And always remember Watts's ultimate teaching. The peace you protect today becomes the life you live tomorrow. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Peace and wisdom to you all.